This is going to be the first time that I've done a presentation using sign language. I'm going to use SSE, so let's see how it goes. And apart from like a couple of notes, I don't really have like a plan. I'm just going to talk. Now my presentation is one of the last ones at the end of the day. It's right towards the end of one of the workshops, so I'm going to actually listen and learn before I do the talky stuff. So I'm going to have time to think about what I'm going to say. Now I don't know if this is just me, but I like to turn up early for being early. So if it starts at 9, I'm thinking, okay, 5-10 minutes early. Let's try and get there 10 minutes before the 10 minutes. So I end up turning up about 20 minutes early. The reason I do this is because I don't like being late, and when I'm trying to find a seat in a room, I like to be able to sit somewhere where I can hear, so it's also that I want to be able to get a seat where it's useful for me. So I actually find myself, like I say, getting ready early for being early, and that actually helped me in this situation because where I was going to a university campus, and on the campus you need a parking permit to make sure you don't get charged for where you're parking. But in this rush, I was actually thinking about what I might want to say, what I might not want to say, and I ended up actually forgetting my parking pass. This university campus is massive. I'm looking at the map and I'm like, I don't know, I'm just going to have to figure it out. I'll probably ask lots of people like, where is this car park? Where am I going? And for those that don't know, I lost my phone a few days ago and now it doesn't charge. So I have 53% to last the entire day to make sure I actually can communicate with people. Well, that was annoying. I forgot the piece of paper for parking. Yeah? Can everyone hear me without the microphone? Yeah? Yeah? Because I'm not going to use the microphone because I want to use my hand. Now, that's something I hadn't even thought about. Obviously, if you're going to do sign language and there's a microphone there, you need to hold the microphone. But if I'm waving the microphone around, that's not going to be a great experience. So I needed to check to make sure that I could sign during the talk, then not use the microphone. When I went to a conference previously with those that were doing sign language, the person at the front was doing the sign language. They were using BSL, and there was another person that was talking for the sign language. So it wasn't one person doing sign and talking, which is why I think SSE is more potentially suitable. Obviously, let me know in the comments if that's not. But during this talk, you see I got to my section, it's Danny Hatcher and then lived experience, and all I did is I worked through school. So I went through primary school, secondary school, university, then playing football, athletics, trampoline, giving different experiences through each lived experience. Of course, there were crossovers, so the sun, football coaches, athletic coaches, they all stood with the sun behind them, so they didn't have to look at it, but I can't see them lip reading. But in the presentation, I gave the example of the athletics coach. And after the talk, when I was speaking with people, they were saying, you looked confident, you looked comfortable up there, and I am now, but 4 years ago, I wouldn't have even got on a Zoom call because I was too scared and too nervous to talk to someone. And giving that context afterwards, I think helped them understand the situation I was in, which, on reflection, I'm thinking maybe I should have expressed more about me rather than the deaf me, if that makes sense, because I am also half blind. I've gone through anxiety, I've gone through depression, struggled through suicidal thoughts. So that is still part of my story, but I chose not to share that because I was talking about the half deaf me. And while I was listening to a lot of the other talks in the morning, I was so conflicted about what to say and what not to say. I feel like it went well. All of the responses were positive, and a few people understood my sense of humour, so there were a couple of jokes, which does lighten up the mood a little bit. But because I'm telling my lived experience, I feel like I breezed through some of the points that I could have actually discussed and went into a little bit more depth on. But I don't know what's interesting and what's not interesting to other people, because to me it's just, yep, did this, yep, did that. And it's sort of like a list of things that I go through and sort of share. That's something that I would want to express or understand better if I am going to do a talk like this again. That was like amazing, but also terrifying at the same time. It was the first time that I'd ever done any sort of like sign talking in front of lots and lots of people, and it's the first time I've spoken to lots of people in a group that's not coaching trampoline since my degree back there. Like there's 4 years, maybe 5 years? Yeah, 5 years. It's a long time. You see, I got my little name badge, Active Sussex, and there's me, there's Danny. Like, Eastbourne Trampoline doesn't exist, so it's like, there's my name, there's my organisation. It's just me twice. Now, as a coach attending, there are a couple of things that really stuck out to me, which was, it was nice to hear, confirming to hear, but also might be interesting for other coaches or other workers, educators that work with individuals that have needs. The first one was about confidence, the confidence of the individual to share their need or want to talk about their need. It came from the first workshop, and it resonated with me because when I was younger, I didn't want to sort of put my hand up and say, I'm deaf, I'm half deaf, can you do this, can you do that, can you say this again? I didn't want to admit that I had this disability, and to me, it wasn't a disability, it was just me. I don't have this problem, I just can't hear from there. That's how I saw it. I wasn't, or I didn't want to be disabled. I didn't want to be this different person, this person with a need. So the confidence to actually talk about that with someone that wants to help me, I didn't have. And so when I'm thinking about coaching now, I'm like, okay, well, we were talking to lots of educators, coaches, people that organise events for SEND individuals, those with visual impairment, hearing impairment, or any other need. And if those coaches are trying to include people in the conversation, do they ask questions? What is your need? Well, if it's a child or a young person or a person with needs that doesn't want to talk about their need, their disability, they're not going to say it. So I guess the question there is, as the organiser, as the coach, as the educator, as the person delivering the service for activity, do you go around asking people, do you have a disability? I don't think that's a good idea. So how do you be inclusive? How do you get people involved? That's an interesting question. That's something that resonated with me. Sorry, battery died. Now, for me, that resonated with me, but how do you then make things inclusive? The answer, I think, I've said this a couple of times, so I'm just going to say it. I think it's a case of being inclusive for everyone to an extent, but also exclusive. As I said in a previous video, I'll link in that corner. I think most people will problem solve for themselves, find something that works for them, or they will resonate with sessions that work better for them. So creating sessions that are different, deliberately different, exclude and include different individuals may help with that. As an example, practical example that I'm thinking about doing for the trampoline community that I'm looking at developing is having a girls only session, boys only session, then a session where the ability is capped at different levels. So only somersaults, then only double somersaults, then anything more. So you have the opportunity to turn up to most of those sessions, the ability sessions or the boy session. Obviously, if you're a boy, go for a go, and then mixed gender, non-binary, potentially an individual session for them as well. Again, I would need to work out what the demand is, what the individuals would want, what they need, but having the inclusive and exclusive sessions not at the same time, but together in the same community, if that makes sense. Which brings me really nicely to the second point that happened in this conversation. I said at the end to someone that I was talking to, I need to speak professionally, or I need to be professional. I think that is one of the biggest barriers to trying to communicate here. Because if I'm trying to communicate, I need to be open. I need to be available or able to make mistakes in the language I use, the communication that I use, because I'm not familiar with that community. So if I make mistakes, I want people to say, oh no, it's not like this, or it's like that, or you need to explain it this way, or that doesn't help, this might help, but I need to have the opportunity to make those mistakes. And I need to be unprofessional and communicate the ways that I'm thinking of doing things for people to say, oh no, can you try it the other way? And finding a psychologically safe environment to do that is very difficult. I felt psychologically safe at the conference today, but in sessions online, they're different environments and you may get toxic comments. I would likely, looking at the comment section, get some toxic comments because I'm sharing this on YouTube. And of course, everyone has their own opinions and we will disagree. It's going to happen. But I think if the organisers and the people organising the sports and the services aren't open enough to make those mistakes, to try and be inclusive, to try and have maybe excluded groups and see if it works, see if it doesn't work, why does it work, why doesn't it work, and talk about those mistakes, then I don't think we're going to move forwards anywhere and we're just going to sit where we are. I thought I would change the position a little bit. So can you see my hands? Yeah. So something else, like the third point that I wanted to discuss, like on reflection from today, was sign. Like BSL and speaking is so difficult. I've tried it, I tried it, and no, I can't speak and do BSL because the grammar is so different. So SSE, I found, is the easiest for me to communicate whilst speaking. I don't know what the sign is for speaking. Tell me in the comments if you know. And I will look it up on the internet later anyway, so I will find out. But signing and explaining my experience with being half-deaf is, I recognise it's different, but there are things that I said today that resonated with others that I wasn't expecting for them to resonate with. One example is when I'm trying to lip read someone or trying to understand what they're saying, if I ask them to repeat it a second time or a third time, sometimes they change the sentence. And if they change the sentence, I explain this in the talk, if I've got 40% of what you've said and I don't quite understand the last 60%, if you change the sentence, I'm back to 0% because you've changed the sentence structure. I'm like, oh, okay, let's try and figure this out again. Whereas if you kept the same sentence structure, you say the same sorts of words, I can then troubleshoot the last 60%. That helps with my experience. That's something that resonated with other people. Now, to me, that's obvious. For them, it wasn't. And that was really interesting to hear. Yes, I recognise the irony. I said hear, I can hear through my left ear, but yeah, funny joke. And so now, when I'm thinking about coaching or about talking about my experience, I want to recognise the things that are interesting to others. When I'm talking about my coaching journey, what's interesting to others? If you're not in trampoline, is there something you can take from my experience? Is there something you can learn from my experience? Is there something I can learn from you that you maybe want to share with me? I don't know, and this is where I'm like, how do you ask questions about things I don't know? That's what I'm asking myself. Days like today are incredible for so many reasons, experiences, networking, conversation, but there's going to be a lot of emails going backwards and forwards, which is where I'm going to now. So I'll see you tomorrow.